I've actually just returned from my honeymoon. I've been very lucky enough to go to Australia and Fiji, which is a really amazing experience. We started off flying to Perth in Western Australia. I ran about a week there. I've never been before, but my wife used to live there, so she took me where she used to live. And then we went down to Margaret River. We did lots of wine tasting, and then we went up to the sort of beach area, which is known as Fremantle, where I spent some time on the beach. And then we flew over to the east coast. We went to Sydney, we did all of the main sites in Sydney, Harbour Bridge, went over to Manly Beach, caught the local ferries. It's really easy to get around, which was nice. And after that, we went to Fiji. Fiji is probably my favourite destination, mainly because of the people. The people really make it. They're really warm, they're really friendly. They take a real interest in where you've been and where you've come from, especially if you've travelled as far as we had to go from the UK. They're really interested in what life's like in the UK and just really make you feel like you're at home. That was kind of my preconceptions as well. But what was nice was venturing outside of the main city centre. City centre is great, fantastic coffee shops and restaurants and things along those lines. But the real joy of it was venturing outside of the city to sort of slightly more local areas. Like we went to a place called Hillary's Harbour, which is around about half an hour north. It's just a completely different atmosphere. It's very relaxed. It's sort of a harbour, again, with loads of bars and restaurants and a bit more of a locals feel rather than the city centre being slightly more touristy. So that was nice to experience. We did a mixture of both 5-star luxury hotels, which was very nice indeed, and sort of more basic accommodation. For example, we did self-catering quite often because Australia is really sort of built up for self-catering. They have apart hotels, so you can do half apartment, half hotel, where you can still get the facilities of a hotel, but also have self-catering facilities where you can look after yourselves as well. I think the standout hotel was probably the Four Seasons in Sydney. It was just an amazing hotel. It's located right on Circular Quay. Because it was a honeymoon, we were upgraded to a view with the harbour. We woke up every single morning to opening the curtains to a view of the Opera House as well as the Sydney Harbour Bridge. So we can have breakfast in bed and look at that view. It's amazing. The service there was like nothing I've ever experienced. We went down to an area called Pemberton in Western Australia, which is just south of Margaret River, about an hour's south. And we stayed in a hotel called Rackkerry Valley, which was a really unique experience. It's a little bit like an Australian version of Centre Parks. So there were loads of free activities to do there, like good hikes, anything from half an hour all the way through to like 2 to 3 hours, and hiring the kayaks and things along those lines, which was really nice. And you can do stand-up paddle boarding and things along that side. Fiji is definitely more than a beach. It's more about the individual islands and what they've got to offer. And the real joy of Fiji, I tend to find, is perhaps slightly more away from the mainland and more on the individual islands called the Mamanuca Islands and the Aswara Islands. That's where you see the real heart of Fiji, and you get to learn a little bit more about their culture and the way that each individual island gets their produce and how they make a living from day to day. That was my favourite thing about visiting Fiji. I think with Fiji you need a minimum of 7 nights, just because it's a little bit further out of the way. It's quite a nice thing to do at the end of a long trip as a bit of a relaxed time, and I would recommend around about minimum of 7 nights. My top tips for travelling to Australia would be, firstly, don't do it all at once. Try and include a stopover on the way to Australia. It's such a long distance, minimum of 20 to 23 hours. So if you can include a stopover in a city, perhaps like Hong Kong or Singapore, that will break up the journey and help ease up the jet lag. So when you land in Australia, you're not going to be walking around quite like a zombie. Second top tip would probably to do a mixture of hotels as well as self-catering accommodation. Australia is really well catered for a mixture of both. So a lot of their hotels will include facilities like cooking and washing facilities, which means if you're traveling for a significant amount of time, you can get your washing done on the move as well as cooking breakfast for yourself rather than just eating in restaurants all the time. Thirdly, I would probably say don't try and take on too much. Make sure you leave enough time to properly enjoy Australia. It is a holiday at the end of the day, so you don't want to just be traveling from place to place in each individual night. You want to give yourself plenty of time where you can relax and actually enjoy the places that you're in, rather than just hopping in the car from day to day.